is what they call global warming. Is that also what's going to unthaw these beings out that you're saying is frozen? Is that another
Well,
reason
they
why?
have to be thawed out by a process, or the process of them thawing out will kill them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very specific process. And the warming of the temperature that they call global warming is trackable using the sun cycle, moon cycle, ancient calendar,
Mm-hmm.
right? And coming out of the ice age, we leaving out of the moon cycle, going into the sun cycle. In the moon cycle, it gets cold enough to have an ice age.
Mm-hmm.
And in the sun cycle, it get hot enough to create deserts from lush forests, especially when man start whacking it down. They trying to make a Sahara Desert in South America,
Mm-hmm.
chopping down the rainforest,
Mm-hmm.
right? But that's how they suffocate the people. They change our oxygen reception,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because when we was breathing the double O molecule of oxygen called ozone, is when the atmosphere was to the ground, it was almost as thick as water,
Mm. Wow.
right? And we was breathing that double oxygen molecule, which was making us need to convert magnesium copper in the blood as opposed to iron and copper. The iron was replaced using science,
Mm-hmm. Mm.
right? By altering certain codons on the DNA, the body will use what they call the soft metal over the hard metal by its adjustment. That's adjustable on the genome,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this is why we not green no more. Now, when the body is absorbing the ozone molecule, the double oxygen molecule, and it's using that in the conversion of the magnesium and copper, we get an aqua blue tint to our skin instead of a rusty red brown.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's because that's when they say created man from the earth, altered the genome
Mm-hmm.
using the elements they found in the earth that was compatible with the species.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So when we talking about the ancient Tartarus, we talking about the continent that's covered in ice, right? But
Mm-hmm.
what do that got to do with Saturn? Because in the time that this comes about, where the space war, the Vermanus Wars took place, we didn't have no moon.
You said the Vermanus?
Vermanus Wars, that's what they call them in the Vermanus Sutras.
Okay.
Okay, so these was the great wars in which the great planet destroyer weapons called the Gandiva in India,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
They translated as planet destroyer out of the Sumerian text, right? And this is what caused the great explosion. And they calling that the Big Bang, but that was not the Big Bang. That wasn't the beginning,
Mm.
right? Because that's traced back to a specific point in time where the Earth was altered and the moon was put there as a guardian. The moon is a whole spaceship. Then it will leave and take off if it need to go on a defense mission that's that thick. And that's why they keep saying ain't nobody been to the moon, right? Because they told them don't come up there. It ain't that they can't get there, but the people up there in the ship said don't bring your ass up here when they sent the satellite.
Who's they? Those
NASA,
people. No, no, no. Who told NASA don't bring your ass up here?
the people on that ship. The people that was on the ship.
Mm.
And their third eye is more pronounced than ours. You ever seen the picture of Mona Lisa, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you know that they gave that uh, sarcophagus that she was in to those astronauts on the space station. The space station been there longer than they telling us. But what the work that was being done, all of them stories of Star Trek come from that shit.
Really?
Those are stories the CIA gave them, feeding them information through NASA, through astronauts and cosmonauts from Russia. They condense all of the stories because they have to put it in the public domain, and they pass it off to us as a fiction or a science fiction.
Yo, you know, Rod, you know how we always hear about how Hitler was tied in with aliens. Now I hear about Tataria being a part of Russia. Does Putin have, because Putin seemed like he's on that Hitler energy. Does he have any connection with some type of extraterrestrials or something to give for him to have that much power in that area right there?
Look, the Anunnaki is supporting both Donald J. Trump, and they supporting him back in Vladimir Putin.
The Anunnaki.
The Anunnaki. The Inky line.
This is some strange stuff, man.
Look, they already gave the report. The military intelligence officer gave the briefing when Inky's line of Anunnaki, because they the ones got to come back. Enlil line can't come back. And the ones that they left here got to get the fuck gone. Right? So they already got permission, and that's already been put in the public domain. That Inky's family came to recover certain artifacts that they can't leave here. That's related to the mining of the gold. Right? And they also got to be the ones that come to collect the gold from Earth, because Enlil's contingents ain't allowed nowhere around here, or the Andromeda beings gonna zap their ass into oblivion because they the ones started this shit. So the moon, I don't know how long it's gonna be there. It might be there another 100,000 years, million years, I don't know. But it's a ship. Right? And a lot of the modern scientists is well aware, just from the math alone, that it has to be a ship. Right? In order for it to maintain a consistent orbit at that particular position, it's either got a guidance system, right? Or it have some form of intelligence to keep it in its position.
Right.
Otherwise, it wouldn't stay. Before that, what we called woman magic, moon magic, we was talking about Saturn magic.
Before moon magic.
Right, because there was no moon there. And that's why they didn't affect their cycle. They used to turn it on and turn it off when they wanted to have babies. Right, and they could do it all the way up into their hundreds. Some of them up into 200 years old. Now your body so broke down at 40, you don't even. How can you expect to carry your baby? You know, because of the poisons that they feeding us, toxins that they putting in the air, poison they putting in the water, GMOs, growth hormones, all this stuff that they giving us to shorten the lifespan. They already altered the actual genes itself in order to take back about 80% of what's called the sheath. Right? So now the sheaths only cover the 4 tips of the gene, when it used to cover the entire gene. That's when we lived in something called the forever time. Right? So when you read in ancient Egypt in the hieroglyphs, when it's talking about the time before there was kings, and they refer to it as the forever time, that's because we didn't have the time construct. The time construct is programmed through Metatron's cube using the Dark Knight satellite. Right? So the Dark Knight satellite has to work in conjunction with the moon in order to keep us in a stupor of time. Time is malleable when you are in control of your full self. That's why it's called the forever time. When you lose certain psychological faculties that you're not even aware you have because you've been deliberately miseducated, then most of us never go looking for those parts of the lost self. Right? And
Right.
that's the great work. The great work is to build Solomon's temple. What is the Solomon's temple? It's the temple of man. What is the temple of man? The temple to house the soul. What is the soul? The soul of man.
Mm.
It's cyclic because we in a perpetual time loop, right? So when they look for Hiram, the master the self-raised master, they telling him he can't come into the lodges because they've been infiltrated. He had to get his degrees and rites of passage to the throne off the fat of the land. Get it out the dirt,
Mm.
right? When that happens, that means that something went wrong that's really bad. And then they need somebody that's going to come in that can unscramble a fucking egg.
Right. Right.
Right? So they call on the person that can figure all this shit out because all I'm going to do is reverse engineer everything until I find the anomaly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? So we look at two sides of the same coin as being in opposition, but I don't see it that way. Right? Because how can two opposing things receive credit for the same invention? Somebody lying.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So when you go back and look at all of the inventions, you realize something ain't right. About a good 87% of the inventors come from the land.
Yeah.
Right? So while I'm looking at this, they telling us Albert Einstein invented the atomic bomb. No, Albert Einstein didn't invent the atomic bomb. Albert Einstein cracked the relative theory that tells them what is required to split an atom. That's not enough to tell them how to create a bomb because you have to now create a mechanism, a machine, a three-dimensional object that serves the function of splitting an atom. Right? So who did? When they couldn't figure it out, they called on Lloyd Quartermain. Lloyd Quartermain bring his physicists into the Manhattan Project, and voila, all of a sudden they got Fat Boy and Little Boy, or whatever the hell their name was. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they needed people that have what you call holographic projective vision that comes with being trained as an adept. You being trained how to use both sides of your brain as soon as possible. So now you can use the mathematical formula to draw the hologram of what it looked like. And then you, from the hologram, you create a sketch. And the sketch is called a diagram. So you see, you went from hollow to dia,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you're coming into the physical world. So you're going from a crystal view of everything to a one-sided view that's predicated upon something dying. So in the physical world, the rule is that everything living must die, right? And everything that died must return. That's the cycles of life is what we call it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the story of the great father Osiris, right? When you read the story, you realize he got struck by his brother Set and he knocked out his eye. That's Enlil,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? And it's symbolic to cutting off the use of half of his brain, right? So we talking the Kanja War causing a stroke. So you know in the Kanja War, somebody gonna try to blow you up and cause you to have a stroke. That means they're gonna either attack you or your heir. If your heir is attacked, you have a stroke. If your heir is permanently corrupted, you have a stroke. Which side of your brain is the stroke tell you which one of your heirs it is.
Mm.
Right? That's all in the conjure. That's part of the Babylonian blood magic, ritual family magic.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But they don't teach this stuff openly. That's why we have to figure out ways to get the information out of the institutions that they blocked our faces out of.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And some people got to get the information hostile, left-hand path.
Mm-hmm.
right? And some people got to give the story righteous, the right-hand path. Now, if you get stuck being overly righteous, you stuck to the right. If you get stuck being permanently wicked, you stuck to the left. And then if you're the last resort, they send you to what they call the bump straight to get bumped straight. And the bump straight is the straight bump that bumps straight across all of the bumps.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And those are metaphors for the teaching technique to raise higher consciousness without a person never knowing they being taught. So you aid Mother Nature in the development of the best quality products of the species by influencing the growth by a series of punishment and release.
Mm-hmm.
The punishment and the misery, that's just the test. And the training is always easier than the test. Right?
Indeed.
And the test is always harder than the training.
Mm-hmm.
But everything that's in the test was in the training.
Mm-hmm.
And if you fall back on the training, then you pass every test.
You pass every test. I want to get back to the Tartarians and the Saturn connection.
Mm-hmm.
Saturn is still, so-called in our solar system. So what made Tartarian fall? I mean, it's not like Saturn disappeared. When did the moon come in? Like what, the moon took over, it's blocking the light from Saturn from hitting
That's
this?
why you used to be able to see Saturn clear as day in the night sky.
Okay.
It was big as hell. They have people that have genetic memory that's drawing pictures of looking at Saturn with no moon in the sky. But the rings wasn't always there.
So where the rings come from?
They making them now. They still making them.
They make who's they?
Aliens. Well, I don't know if you call them aliens. They're your ancestors.
But what's the purpose of making the rings of Saturn?
Long distance communication. In reduced amount of time, they turning Saturn into a giant satellite.
Damn, man,
so Saturn ends up becoming the biggest satellite ever made.
Wow, in the universe.
Yeah, by adding the rings to it.
Wow.
That way, Nibiru would be able to communicate with the inner Earth realm for navigational purposes. Because before they knocked us off our axis. Right. So we're talking about what's causing this war, right? Because most of these planets used to be populated. Now most of them desolate.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And one of the moons, I think it was Europa. When they came through the atmosphere, they bumped into the moon. Some of the debris behind the tail of Nibiru. Right? They are conscious of the debris tail because they can alter the ship where 98% to 99% of the debris don't come into the atmosphere. Because they can navigate it. It's not like spaceship Earth where it's not navigated the same. Right? So theirs is driven with mind power and technology. Earth is driven with physics, light, and mathematics. It's a different system, but we can communicate across systems. Right? So this is one of the reasons why when the Ice Age was the result of that war, it was a nuclear winter. Right? And they say it killed off the dinosaurs. That was a whole different event and a whole different time frame. But because everything is cyclic, it runs in a circle, a spiral, right? Until we got caught in an infinity loop. And the infinity loops is what makes misery. Because you have two sides of a creation overlapping each other. And they're not supposed to do that. They're supposed to be free-flowing on their own trajectory. They called it collapsing the fourth into the third. And this is why we need sleep. Right? Because you have to live in two worlds at the same time. And when one world is pulling on you, you can't stay away from the other one. Right? So when we wake up, we in the 3D world. We here. But we don't know how to navigate it because we don't know that this is a construct that we agreed on a long time ago. And we allowed the bad kids to come into the school and just take over. So now we just trying to put everything back in order. Rearrange it the way that it's supposed to go. That means raise the matriarchy. If you put it the way it's supposed to go, it run how it's supposed to run.
Does the matriarchy get raised along with the raising of the energy of Saturn? Is that?
Well, the raising of the energy of Saturn is a whole different phenomenon because what they're doing with Saturn is turning into a communications network. So imagine the internet on steroids.
Yeah.
Rapid internet exchange 3,600 light years away.